part of this meeting.
Yes,
You know,
I want
there's
that.
not
I
on
want
here,
that.
so I
We'll
guess
add
during
that.
my comments
During-
or
during-
something?
No,
Okay.
new business. Let's,
business?
yeah,
Okay.
have you add that.
But I tell you what, you know, you can eat gravel or you can drive on it, because he'll be eating gravel if the gold plane doesn't go the right way.
Right.
And we
Gonna
can put
take
some
a knee
real
here,
restrictions
am
on
No.
them.
You
Owners.
ready? Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bruce, roll call, please.
Councilmember Here. Councilmember Bisbal.
Here.
Councilmember Ellis.
Here.
Mayor Kaczynski.
Here.
Councilmember Cusick.
Here.
And we have absences of Mr. Gazelle and Dr. Looney.
Okay, I'd like a motion to excuse both council members from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Support. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have in our packet on page 3 to 7 our regular minutes from the September 19th meeting. Please review them, and if they're in order, I need a motion to approve them.
Second.
Any further discussion? Nice job, Bruce, 5 pages. So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Also on pages 8 to 16 are different committee and commission minutes. Again, we're accepting them in the public domain. I need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Okay, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public comment. We have any public comment? Yes, please come to the podium.
Ma'am, gentlemen, my name is Peter Masuga, and I live at 524 Sheldon, Grosse Pointe Shores. And I'm before you today to, let you know something that's been happening on my block for about a year and a half, and to ask your help. The 500 block from the Wall to South Deeplands has been a construction zone since August of 2016. August of 2016. Now, a home construction permit is 1 year pursuant to section 6-35 of the village ordinances. Mr. Russell has been constructing a home at the corner of the Wall and Sheldon since August of 2016. It is not yet complete. The front porch is even still held up by 2x4s. Mud and construction materials are still on the property. Throughout this period, the street has been subjected to construction vehicles parked all the way up the street from the Wall to Deeplands. Not once, many times. That is slowed down now, and most of the construction vehicles are down by that property, but it's daily. Now, a new construction project at 515 Deeplands has begun, and that is a renovation. And that renovation has around the property, thankfully, a green cloth fence which is open at the two driveway entrances and is about, call it 7 feet high. Unfortunately, you can see right into the property through the driveway entrances, and you can see that the property itself is completely open and dangerous. A whole wall is missing. Now, folks, we have small children on our street. And if any one of those small kids gets into that property, there's going to be real problems. When Mr. Russell began his project way back in August of 2016, he tore down an existing home. The demolition debris sat there for about 2 to 3 weeks. as did the open hole where the basement was. There was no fence around it. There was nothing. We have seen concrete trucks, nose to tail, from that property all the way out to Lake Shore, all day, that block our entire street so that liquid concrete could get back there. We have on multiple occasions have branches broken off our trees and lay in the street. Nobody does a thing about that. Something else is, and I'm reading right from your ordinance, subsection B talks about the 1 year. Subsection B also says that the person who authorized the original permit can authorize another year's permit if there has been no delay by the constructor. Well, nobody comes to ask us whether there's been delay. Nobody comes to ask us whether we've been having problems. Nobody comes to ask us about anything. And I have gone to the village on several occasions. The last occasion I spoke to Tom Krozik, and Tom said, look, as far as we know, nobody complains. I know that's a lie. I have complained, and I have been in the presence of other neighbors who have called the village offices to complain about various problems with those 2 construction projects. Now, we want this to stop. We don't have to live like this. You know, what about our peace and enjoyment of our property that we purchased when we paid good money for our homes and deeds? That is part and parcel, as you all know, you're all lawyers, that peace and enjoyment is something that we're guaranteed as a fee holder. We're asking that that be enforced. You know, I went through the rest of your ordinances. You know, you have a public nuisance section. And certainly the conditions that we've been living under are public nuisances. Who enforces these ordinances? I asked that question, and nobody knows. Nobody knows who enforces the ordinances. Who enforces the building ordinances? Who enforces the construction ordinances? Who enforces the nuisance ordinances? Who protects the homeowners? We've asked that before and never gotten an answer.
We'll follow up on it.
And
We
ma'am,
promised to
and
follow
gentlemen,
up.
we ask that you do this. And we'll be back to ask further. And we would like that no permit be extended on any construction project until the neighbors are directly contacted and asked whether there has been delay in the present permit construction. 25 Fordcroft is the same way. Have you been there and seen that?
Well, we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. We'll look into it.
Right. And
Thank you.
one further thing, and then I will leave. How can that construction still be going on today by Mr. Russell's company when his permit should have expired in August of 2017?
We'll look into it.
Thank you.
Okay. Mark, do you have an answer?
Basically, the city's ordinances are subject to the state construction code, and they can extend a permit and request a permit, and as far as I'm aware of, I've not had any complaint from you or other neighbors with respect to those sites. And we'll be happy to check into the requirement for a green construction fence around the site is a recent one that the Planning Commission has now made a condition of any of the constructions that go on. His permit, you're an attorney, you understand that we're subject to what the state construction code commission requires. And they basically, if you drive in Dale every 6 months, we have no choice but to extend it.
Sir, then your
Whether
ordinance,
we charged him for that, I'm not sure.
your ordinance says the exact opposite, and that's what the state construction code says. If there is in fact delay, undue delay, you don't have to extend anything.
Not correct.
Yes, it is correct. Read the law.
I've read the law.
Well, you're wrong,
I've been
sir.
involved in
And
enforcement of the law for 40 years.
And this is the same reaction that my neighbors and I have gotten each time we've called the village. Nobody's complained.
Well, we'll look into it,
That's
sir.
a lie.
We'll look into it.
We're all told the same thing.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Said the same thing, so did other folks.
Any more public comment? Well, at this point, we'd like to recognize the concession workers that we've had thanks to Full Circle. So would you, everyone please come forward from Full Circle? We appreciate your hard work, your dedication, and we have a great partnership. The staff or concession, stand. We have shirts we like to, those point chores to recognize. Again, you have the wrong size. Thanks.
You got a variety of colors,
Yeah,
tigers or yellow.
we have extras too, so if someone's missing, yeah. take that. And then you can work out the sizes. But we appreciate all your hard work and your dedication in making our concession stand successful for our village. So let's give them a hand. Anybody like to speak or say something? You're welcome to. We had, I think last year, did you speak last year? Yeah, Carol? Okay. Sure.
I would just like to thank everybody that participated in our summer concession stand. It really meant a lot to us, just like you coming by and purchasing a hot dog or candy, whatever you can purchase. It really makes our day just about put a smile on your face. So keep supporting us and help us stay open, okay?
So, thank you very much for coming.
And you're gonna be back next year, right?
Hopefully, we want to.
All right, good, good. Thank you. That's why we do it.
Yes.
That's right there why we do
Let me
it.
say it's been our pleasure to serve this community.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight. All right, the next item is the Grosse Pointe Library Board update. Is Kim here? Oh, Jessica? Okay. Thank you, Full Circle.
Even a blind squirrel finds in that, you know.
What was that guy's address?
524.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having me tonight. The main reason I wanted to come tonight was to draw your attention to a shiny new library drop box that is right outside of this building, next to the mailbox in the village drop box. Grosse Pointe Library patrons can now drop their library materials in this box, and they'll be picked up by our delivery drivers and taken back to the library and checked in there. So it's part of our overarching goal to make the library more convenient for all of our residents to use. And I just want to recognize Mark Woolen-Weber was on our strategic planning executive committee, and he was very committed to this, and he wanted to be the very first to get a drop box, and so he accomplished it. Beyond that, we also installed our new bike repair stations that were made possible through a grant from Wayne County and with your assistance. We are going to have a special presentation at our board meeting next Thursday, October 26th. A student from Grosse Pointe, Claire Yipe, was a national winner of the Library of Congress Letters About Literature Award. And part of her award is that she gets to grant any library a $250 grant. So she'll be presenting that to the Grosse Pointe Public Library next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. We partnered with SEMCOC this month to educate people about pedestrian and bicycle safety at our Halloween events, and we've been passing out, with the assistance of our public safety officers, different light-up devices that help children and adults be more visible as the days get shorter. And finally, if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, we have a really great new video streaming service called Canopy. It's right on our homepage, and you can link it to your Roku or your Chromecast, and it's very high quality documentary, instructional films, award-winning things. The whole Criterion collection is there, so for film buffs, it's a really wonderful resource, and that's free.
Well, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
A resident asked me Saturday, how often are the books picked up at, if today's the due date, and they were saying if they dropped it off today, would it be recognized as,
Yes, they'll be picked up daily.
okay, daily?
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Jessica, for that
Thank you.
update. The next item, I'd like to add Tim Killeen to the agenda. Tim, would you like to give us an update from your perspective as our commissioner in Wayne County?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good to be back before you. Would just mention the bike repair stations. Those get paid for out of your Wayne County Parks millage on your property tax bill. I think I've mentioned before to council here, annually I have the ability to direct about 100,000 of the roughly 9 million that comes in for that for projects in my district. The limitation there is that it has to be somewhere where it's accessible to all county residents for parks. So that presents some challenges in the points because I can't do in any other waterfront parks with that. Fortunately, Mr. Wollenweber is well aware of the limitations and from time to time calls me up with ideas for how to spend the money, and it's very helpful that he does that. So we spent about 10 grand this time. It was 4 or 5 of those bike
There's
repair
8 of them
stations.
all told, the 3 libraries.
Yeah, right out front
two
here.
on Mac, ours here,
Yeah.
right by the bus stop.
So there's several that are around. And that's done on a reimbursable basis, where the local communities pony up and put them in, send us a bill, and Mr. Wollenweber has been ringing my phone saying, hey, can we get a check cut? Can we get a check cut? So I'm working on that right now to go through our bureaucracy to expedite that. So that was the reason Mark asked me to come by tonight. But if it's the pleasure of the mayor, I want to mention a couple other topics briefly as long as I'm here. I'm sure Mr. Wollenweber has been keeping you up on the seawall. There's significant issues with the seawall. As a county commissioner, I don't want to see my road get washed into the lake someday. So it's been start and stop. When I first was a commissioner, they had a thing in Washington called earmarks. And we were trying to get earmarks for that, and that never came about because it's going to be a big number to repair it, and it's gotten nothing but worse since. There's little patching that takes place occasionally, but you can only do that so long. So now we have the Army Corps of Engineers involved. Shane Reside over in Grosse Pointe Farms has been very good, kind of in running point on this. We have the engagement of the myself and the Evans administration and Congresswoman Lawrence's office involved. So we're at the point now of having a study done by the Corps of Engineers to see what the remedy might be and the nice little dollar tag that comes with that. $100,000 for the study, the feds pony up for that. If there's additional money above $100,000 to get the study done, then there's a 70-30 split with the feds paying the 70% and then some combination of Wayne County the shores and the farms would have to come up with the other 30% for that. And then at that point, we'll have something to look at to say which way do we want to go, how do we want to proceed on this. But I'm very pleased the progress is being made. That needs to get done. And the sooner you do something like this, even though it's a big price tag, it gets nothing but more expensive the longer it sits there without anything being done. I'd also like to give you a quick update. I've only been talking about it for 6 years now on the Wayne County Jail. We're getting very close. The process has been that the county sent out a request for proposals on completing the jail on the Gratiot site. We had one response to that RFP, which is the largest company in the country that builds jails, responded. We also got an unsolicited, under our procurement ordinance, an unsolicited response to that from Rock Financial. So we've had these two proposals. Almost a year ago now, the commission approved contracts to have companies come in and do the due diligence on the two proposals. And at that point, Executive Evans was going to look at their due diligence reports and say which of the two looks more likely, and I will enter into negotiations with them. It was deemed that the Rock proposal was more likely, so negotiations have been going on. I've read both of those reports, and now I've been around a little while. I want to say both of the proposals have significant problems, deficiencies. The county is hamstrung for money. Last year's budget, $5 million in the black. And in a 1 point some billion dollar budget, $4 billion budget, that's not much. This year we're showing about 20 million with the fiscal year that we just started. So I like to tell people, yeah, we got one nostril above water, but if a dinghy goes by, the wake will put us back under. And also being public, our finances are well known. And it's a handicap when you go into negotiations when one side knows everything about your finances and you don't necessarily know anything about their finances. That's been a handicap. But the problems I see on the county side, if we finish the Gratiot site, and I'm not one, I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors to talk about the entrance to downtown and, we can't have a jail at the gateway and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's a little PR that's going on out there. It should be pointed out that all of those properties where the jail and the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice is down there are all immediately adjacent to Rock Financial's properties. On our side of the deal then, if we have to manage it, then we have to live with the cost overruns and manage, on a project that size. There really is, there's never that it comes in exactly as it's bid out. So we would have to manage that. The real significant problem that I have with that is the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, which is, now I heard some allegation that there's nothing but attorneys around here, but if you have been in Frank Murphy, you know what a rat hole that is. It is in awful shape. It's day to day whether you can get an elevator or not. And so if we finish the Gratiot site, we would also spend $30 million on Frank Murphy to buy us maybe another 10 years in that building. But at some point, 10 years from now, we need to build a new courthouse if we finish the jail there. So I have to add the cost of that. If there's a decision to be made to go to Gratiot and finish the jail, I also have to consider new courthouse, $140 million. That's also part of the bargain. On the Rock Financial side, what they have offered to us, because they know our money and they know what we can afford, is they said, we'll build you a jail, a courthouse, a new juvenile detention facility, because that is also one of the properties down there. And when it originally hit the paper early this year, January, February, the deal was, we're going to build you a $480 million complex you give us 300 million, and we handle all the cost overrun. What hasn't been as well reported is about 6 months later, they came back and said, well, we realized where we had proposed building it is not a big enough footprint. We have to go somewhere else. And now the deal is going to be, we're going to build a $520 million facility for you, and you're going to give us $380 million. It gives me great concern of the due diligence that Rock did, that within 6 months, after having 2 years to look at this, that they couldn't even get the footprint size correct. And I'm real concerned, because of the hamstring that we have with finances, that we're going to get nickel dime on this. And one of the questions I'll have, because I expect within a month the administration is going to bring us the proposal for the Rock proposal, and that will be up 4 blocks from the world's largest municipal incinerator, which doesn't thrill me either. That's where we'll put the sheriff and the prosecutor, as well as our youth and the people in our custody in the jails. So I'm expecting to vote on that in the very near future. I don't know what a "we'll handle all the cost overruns" means. I suspect that there's leakage in such a guarantee, and I don't want to get embroiled in visiting courtrooms and saying, well, that really is a guarantee that you should cover, and then somebody say, well, no, because of this reason, that's really not what was, what we promised. So I am concerned about that, and also being concerned that after 2 years they make a proposal and have to change it within 6 months. That doesn't give me great confidence. But it does look like the direction we're heading. Another real constraint that we have as a county is of the 3 major credit ratings. One of us has us exactly at junk bond status. The other 2 have us 1 tick below that. Now, since we had the involvement of the state in the consent agreement, and county finances have stabilized, not at a great place, but they've stabilized. We've seen slight upticks. We used to be 3 ticks below investment grade. So now we've come up 2, and quite possibly the next go around we will see that we will be at the very bottom of investment grade. But that makes our money more expensive. And the other thing I'm going to be really curious is to see is the financing of the $380 million and how we're going to do that with Rock. And it must be borrowed, and it's going to be expensive money to borrow. So I'm going to be looking at bond payments of $20 million a year, if they're 30-year bonds, in order to get this done. But it has to be done, and that's where we stand at it. So I wanted to give you a little update about where we're at and what you might be able to expect over the next month or 2. I'll field any questions if anybody has any.
How did that land exchange work into that with the county and the city?
Well, yeah, the original proposal, it was already on county property, where the juvenile courts were, which are another set of ratty buildings. And the rumor was, hey, if you wanted your car stolen, go over to the Lincoln Hall of Justice. They steal them out of there all the time. And that was the original proposal that was found to be inadequate. So then the idea is we're going to go to the city of Detroit. They have a big lot over there for their Department of Transportation, and we're going to buy that lot from the city. And so that has been arranged. The city is going to sell that, and there's going to be a swap for another piece of property elsewhere in the city that the county.
The old AMC headquarters.
Sorry?
The AMC building.
AMC, yes, I'm sorry. And not out on 15 Mile up in near Highland Park, wherever.
One over on the west side.
Plymouth.
Road.
Plymouth Road,
The American Motors old headquarters.
It was on Plymouth Road.
Yeah, Plymouth and
Yeah.
Evergreen or whatever.
We have since bought another property, because another aspect that I really don't like about the Rock proposal is they apparently want to have a parking concession now too. And it's like, and this to me is like part of the nickel diamond, you know? And from the numbers I've seen so far, our employees would be paying more monthly to park than they currently do downtown. And I'm telling you, a serious problem the county has is compensation for our employees. Talk to one of the assistant prosecuting attorneys. We cannot pay the salaries that counties around us can. We're bleeding experience. We can't hire new people in. We have the same problem throughout the county. People that work on our road equipment out at the airport at our big garage there that need, you know, engineering, Class A licenses and that stuff from the state, way underpaid there too. And we're running shorthanded and we've lost a lot of experience. So to go back, and I don't know what the proposal is going to be about visitors coming to park. To my idea, we get a lot and open it, and it's free parking for the public and for our employees. But to have a concession where it's, I think the proposal was $110 a month to park, I just feel like it's a little over the top. But things being what they are, you have to look at these things realistically. And if we say no to the Rock proposal, do we really want to go to Gratiot and then have that liability staring us in the face of doing something with the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice down the road? So I have to consider that part of the total cost.
Tim, has
A little long, but there's your answer.
the funding of your defined benefit plan improved as the stock market reaches new highs?
Yes, and actually we're making, it wasn't that long ago, we were 48% funded in there. We have been making a few extra payments out of our general fund to bring that back up. We're now in the mid to high 50s on that, and it'll probably take us, if things go, which they never do, but if things go like we think it'll take us, you know, another 3-4 years to get that thing back over 80, which is a kind of a reasonable number for what you need to be funded in a defined benefit.
Because that affects your rating, I mean, directly.
Absolutely it does, right? And that's what I'm saying. We've got one nostril above water, and any bad thing that happens, we're in trouble again. I do want to say that I have appreciated the leadership of the Evans administration and some of the folks that they've brought in. I see much more realistic approaches to our problems than previous administration that I was there. So I'm really appreciative of that. I never sign up like politically. Like, I'm on the team, whatever you want to do, vote yes. You know, I'm not like that. I tell the county executive, I'm with you until you're wrong, and then I'm not with you. But I do have to, you know, there's been a lot of pain that's been doled out over the last couple of years to our, you know, when you go into these things, just like in the city of Detroit, they say, oh, shared sacrifice, right? And everyone has to give to get out of this. Well, the shared sacrifice in this case has been our frontline employees and our retirees. And so as commissioner, I'm interested, we have to build back, the salary base for our employees. The deal used to be that you took a little less salary and you got the benefits to work in the public sector. The benefits thing is off the table and by the boards, so we have to work on the salary side for people to be able to attract and keep those folks. So I am very much pursuing that. You know, we're looking at a proposal where the retirees want a little help on some health care. But you look at the numbers, and this is our post-employment, our OPEB numbers, post-employment benefits, and then you start projecting that out and you say, well, we're creating another liability that has millions attached to it down the road. No one wants to say to senior retireds, you know, make do with what you have, but that also has to be balanced with the longer term financial interests of the county, because it does us no good to commit to something and 7 years from now have to have another crisis in order to deal with that. So a lot of difficult decisions have been made. We're heading in the right direction. let's hope for good weather and calm seas. It'll really help.
Well, thank you, Tim. We
Thank you very
appreciate
much
you
for
coming.
having me this evening.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, the area by, there's like a couple places of the seawall, I think like one's near Deeplands where there's actually no wall. And then the cement that is all shifted. And I see people walking there, I mean, and boy, I get scared, you know, for,
Yeah, and yeah, I know that I wasn't able to, but Mr. Wollenweber and Mr. Reeside, along with the Corps, went up and looked at some work that they had done up in the Port Huron, Marysville area up there for some ideas. I've seen a lot of the seawall. I haven't walked every inch of it. Just south, I guess, of the Crescent Sail Club there. There's just some really bad areas where there's just huge chunks out of it. They got big photographs of it in the committee room off of Grosse Pointe Farms Council chambers of just how bad it is. So yes, it's crumbling. We can't keep up on the maintenance. Something else has to be done.
and if we have to do emergency repairs, then so be it. We would
Yeah,
have
and
to.
I think some emergency repairs have been done by the county. I hear from both Mr. Wollenweber and Mr. Reeside that the county is responsive on that. But again, we're doing a patch job on, I don't know when, when the last time there was like a real, probably when the seawall was built.
And during the Roosevelt
Yeah,
administration.
was the last time there's been any real kind of serious engineering. And so it's been, Scotch tape and spit and ever since. And at some point it's closer to this point than not, it's going to be an untenable situation. But it also, doing some work in there, opens up a little bit of a discussion that your council and other councils will have, when you talk about people walking along in there, do we want to have a better way for people to walk their dogs or run their baby strollers or, so since the work is going to be done, when I say we, I mean you, what do you really want it to look like when all is said and done?
Well, thank you, Tim. Thanks for bringing us up to date on those critical issues.
Thank you.
Okay. Reports by chairpersons? Mark, you want to?
I've got Rhonda's report this evening. First of all, the wire transfers are pretty much usual. We recently, actually Rhonda met with Cornerstone, who runs the consortium of the Grosse Pointe communities on healthcare, and they explained with some issues of cancer drugs, it increased our cost, but overall, our costs were expected to see a decrease in the calendar year, starting in January. On the checks, asphalt control is certainly almost $35,000 for the repair work on Ballantyne and Briarcliff. The two new police vehicles, almost $60,000 that goes to Crest Automotive. And WCA Assessing, I think I mentioned this before, certainly we did to the Finance Committee. The sketching of all the buildings has been done. Our paper records are now up to snuff with all the requirements of the state. There's just a few more pictures that we have to put in, mostly of the waterfront properties. Happy to answer any other questions. And Rhonda's pointed out that we're almost 97% collected for the summer tax season. And we, as a courtesy, just actually mailed out notices to those who haven't paid, just reminding them there's a penalty provision, etc. Do it as a courtesy, and we can do that based on our small size. And next month, both for the Finance Committee in advance of the council meeting, we expect our auditors here with the very simple and presentation they've done for the last couple of years. And I think that's all. happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Mark?
The payment for, 1,568.70 to Professional Recruiters Group
Yeah.
for labor, what is
It's a
that?
part-time labor person that we use from them throughout the summer and probably through leaf season.
Okay.
Mark, is WOW now one of our vendors, WOW Business?
Yes.
So our internet and telephone upstairs
All
or?
City Hall has been converted to WOW from Comcast, and we're in the process, I don't know if the chief's gonna say this, but I'll just steal his thunder and say that we're in the process of converting the camera system over to WOW as well. And it's so much easier to deal with them.
Then Comcast?
Yeah. Comcast, we can't even get, what's our payout number? What do we owe you from Comcast? They don't, I mean, the chief spent hours on the phone with these people. Unbelievable in terms of, their business practices are just about non-existent.
Then, why do then we have, Verizon bills, Ameritech bills under telephone if everything is under WOW now?
WOW is the internet provider. Verizon provides the phone systems for those who have cell phones, and the phone in the telemetry phone in the ambulance.
Okay, so what's the
And who is
Ameritech
the other one?
phone?
Ameritech is, I think, is one or two additional lines that we're required to keep. I don't know if they're for the sheriff's department or what. Do you remember? Oh, that's it. Yep. That's right.
Okay. So there's no way that we can consolidate those three?
We'll have to take a look at whether we can replace the Ameritech. We pretty much replace them every place here. And if you may remember, a few years ago, one of the lines, we couldn't figure out where it went, so we shut it off. It was the phone line in the elevator. So, when the state inspector came, we had to reconnect that one quickly, so.
Okay.
Well, I need a motion to approve this check register run in the amount of approximately $295,000. Is there a motion?
I have a motion to approve it.
Is there a second? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thanks. Financial statements? Or Bruce, do you want to handle this in financial committee report?
Well, the financial statement was pretty much self-explanatory. Everything's is on budget. As Mark mentioned, we've collected 97% of the summer taxes. Expenditures are proceeding to date under the approved budget that we had. The Finance Committee met yesterday. We discussed a number of issues, principally of which is the evolution of the park plan for presentation to council. I can tell you that it's still under development. There is much discussion amongst the staff as to the direction and what they want to do, so that's some good thinking is coming out of that and a good debate. We also talked about upcoming projects for the next year, principally which is our road improvement program. We asked the question, we're going to try to get a further explanation. We have quite a bit of money in our major road fund when we really don't have any major road repairs ahead of us. Lake Shore's in good shape. Vernier's been redone. So we have to see if we can get blessing to transfer from the major road fund to the local road fund where we can continue to do our street by street repairs that we're marching down. I would say overall our streets are in good to better shape than most. We're looking at Bell Mead is one for a candidate, and then some other work on the north end of the city. Then we talked about just the general budget plan for next year going forward, different cost saving ideas and that stuff. So, and I would also point out that our other finance committee member, Mr. Gazelle, was out ill, and Mark says please report that his surgery was successful and he is obnoxious and ready to come back. He promises to join us at the next meeting. Next finance meeting is a Monday before council on the 20th at 10 a.m. All are welcome at that point. So,
Good report, Bruce. Do we know what our surplus is from last year? Has it been pinned down by the
it's on
auditors?
a need-to-know basis. You know, like we said earlier, I think it's about 40,000
Okay.
we anticipate, but we took anything over the 40 and we put it into the retiree healthcare.
Healthcare fund.
So,
Okay.
and that included an incremental $35,000 pension contribution above what the actuarial amount was, and that was, so we put that in plus the retiree healthcare and still had a surplus going forward, so. That side, we're good to go on that, so.
Good. Any questions? Bruce? Okay. Thanks, Bruce. Chief, Public Safety?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just for the record, I just wanted to follow up on something that Mark had indicated previously, and that is that the construction site at the foot of Sheldon Road, my officers have been down there. We had a parking issue. One of the limitations of that construction location is that it's a dead-end street, and it's difficult for vehicles to navigate down the street. The trucks have to back in, et cetera. In regards to the enforcement of ordinances, we're very sensitive to the noise ordinances as far as Sunday construction, beyond 6 p.m., et cetera. So we do enforce that, and we have been there. And I've been to that site several times with Tom Krolchak as well. So, yes, it's a big house, it's a big project, and it's a bad location. And so that's been some of the handicaps for that construction site. So, but we have been monitoring that progress. So. We had a very quiet month this last month. We had one notable exception. On October 5th, my officers found a car parked on the grass south of Vernier on the lake side. A gentleman sitting in a lawn chair fishing, and we spoke with him, and we got a consent search to search his vehicle, and we recovered a stolen firearm from Texas. So he is our guest. All officers have now been issued the Narcan kits for their use. They're all carrying them. Last week we took delivery of 2 new Ford Explorers. They were delivered to us. City Mechanic is in the process of the switchover, and I'm grateful to Brett and to Scott DeGear, our mechanic, for taking the time. Scott and I tried to schedule this between summer and leaves, and Scott will be off for a period of time, and his work is first rate, and he saves the city between $300 and $3,500 per car. So we're grateful to Public Works and to Brett for making the time for him to be able to work on these cars. As I'm sure the mayor might want to comment later, the tool sale was a success. We had 65 residents participate in the sale. We received very favorable comments back from them, and my thanks to Lieutenant Rohr for coordinating not just the search warrant, we executed the warrant together, but for all of the processes, dealing with these roughly 17 departments. We returned tools to a lot of mechanics, and so it was a big project, but it's coming to an end, and we're going to have that C-tainer removed ASAP, so we'll get that out of there. The final item I wanted to mention tonight is, and I'll do this as briefly as possible, relate to the medic service in the Grosse Pointe and Harper Woods and how it's changing. Right at this moment, Grosse Pointe Park is maintaining a basic service. They're going to be a basic life support. They're not paramedics. They're basic EMTs. They are going to maintain that service. Currently, Grosse Pointe City, Grosse Pointe Farms, Grosse Pointe Woods, and Harper Woods utilize and contract their medic service through MedStar. Currently, Grosse Pointe Farms and Grosse Pointe Woods have those rigs either sitting in their quarters in Grosse Pointe Woods or at Cottage Hospital in Grosse Pointe Farms. Effective this Saturday, the 21st, they'll be moving to a system status management. What that means basically is that those rigs will no longer be in quarters or at the hospital. They'll be floating. It's kind of a two-edged sword. It could be good if the rig's in place. I went to a meeting last week where the owner of MedStar was there with his operations officer, and they estimate there'll be between 2 and 4 rigs in this area at any given time. However, MedStar does a lot of transports from senior facilities to the hospitals, from hospitals to the rivers, etc. So they say that there'll be between 2 and 4 serving these communities at any given time. and they're going to stage throughout. All system status means is that they're not gonna be chained down, they're gonna be moving. They're gonna be parked in Mackinac, they'll be parked in various locations, and they'll be rolling as well, so, I have my serious doubts. This is on a 90-day trial period with these 4 communities, and MedStar indicates this is going to be an enhancement in their service. I'm a little concerned about the response time. What does it mean for Grosse Pointe Shores? Grosse Pointe Shores, we will experience less mutual aid responses than we currently have. For example, if Grosse Pointe Woods is out, if the rig that's closest to Grosse Pointe Woods is out on a medic run, and they get a second run, they will utilize the MedStar system. They're gonna go back into that system, and they're gonna utilize another one of their ambulances. Of course, they want the revenue. MedStar will still come for us, as they do in accordance with our mutual aid agreement, so, we'll have if our medic is busy, they will come for us. If we have a serious accident, they will come for us, and they will also stage at our fire scenes. So the upside for us is that our medic will be in our quarters for more use by Grosse Pointe Shores residents, and ideally, that's good. We'll see. There's a 90-day trial period. I'll report back as we move through this, but I think there's only really an upside for, because they're all, most of them are all MedStar now, so we're getting a mutual aid response from MedStar, and they're improving their communications system as well, so we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you posted.
Chief, are they gonna have the same number then? I mean, you said there's gonna be from 2 to 4 to cover all those areas?
Well, the way they sell it is that there's always medics in the area. There's either at Beaumont, Grosse Pointe, they're at St. John, they're coming and going, they're leaving the rivers. We'll
Yeah,
see.
But like currently, these communities have, like we have a dedicated ambulance. So even if it's not on a run, it's there. And the total population of the points, let's say, is 5. Are they gonna keep the same aggregate number? You don't,
Not at, well,
are they gonna
they
have?
don't know. They don't know. If they pull a rig from Harper Woods to East Point, then ideally what they're telling their customers, which are these 4 communities, is that we'll shift a rig up closer to Harper Woods, or we'll move a rig closer to Grosse Pointe Woods. But no one knows but MedStar. It's like a shell game almost.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, it's how many.
It's
We really have 4, we'll promise you 4, but we only really have 3. Because one of them's,
or 2.
because we're doing a transport of somebody out of the rivers down to the hospital.
Now they say they'll schedule the transports, or they'll provide a dedicated medic for that, but
How do you schedule an emergency? Yeah.
well, emergencies are different. They're hoping to keep the rigs. What they're telling us is, what they're telling them, let me just qualify. They're telling them they'll keep the rigs available for emergency responses. They're hedging their bet on non-life threatening runs. They're saying they don't use lights and siren on a non-life threatening run. Well, we get there and we give them service. We don't care if it's life threatening or not. We provide service. And we also told them too that response time in Grosse Pointe and response time statewide is different. We respond. We're coming. So we'll see how it goes. It's the difference is the reason that they don't want. Now, if Grosse Pointe Farms comes back, for example, and says, we'd like a dedicated rig for Grosse Pointe Farms, they're going to pay for it, and a lot, because now you're taking that one rig out of their command, out of their chain, and you're tying it to Grosse Pointe Farms. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. They're skeptical as well. They mentioned that they have some concerns in regards to this, so we'll see how it goes. But I'll keep you posted. But I think the upside for us is that we're going to be available more for our residents, and that makes me very happy. So,
Chief, can I interrupt just for a second? At this point, when we talk about mutual aid, do you, just off the top of your head, have an idea, let's just say in the last month or 2 months, how often we requested mutual aid from another city for an ambulance?
how many times? Off the top of my head, I would say in the last 2 or 3 months, we may have used them 2 or 3 times.
Okay, so it's not,
Now, if we have a major accident that we need to investigate, we have a head-on, or we will call them, and because we're investigating the accident, we need somebody to transport
Okay.
the two narcotics overdoses that were transported by MedStar, so, but we call for service very little, but we go, probably almost a third of our runs are mutual aid to Grosse Pointe Woods, Grosse Pointe Farms, so.
And that was supposed to drop significantly when they went to MedStar. Remember when Grosse Pointe Woods decided to go to MedStar, you stood up there and said, the number of mutual aid runs that we're gonna experience is gonna decline significantly.
Except now,
But that's all, they are,
that's what I
yeah,
did say, but they're still using the mutual aid agreement the way it was designed. For example, when the Woods rig is out, they call the shores.
Yeah, but they were supposed to have 2 rigs, remember? They were gonna have 2 dedicated rigs in the woods. That's what they promised, and that's what they initially.
One in the woods, one in the farms.
Right, but my point being is that what they told, and what you said to us was, you thought we were gonna really see a drop-off in mutual aid because they were gonna use 2 rigs. Well, they didn't do what they did. So, and you didn't lose any mutual aid runs, if you will, or revenue producers, but,
Well,
so their track record is not really,
They haven't been using MedStar for their back-to-back runs. They've been using Grosse Pointe Shores. So, and they love when we come too, because
well, sure,
we're top-notch.
Right.
you're the best.
And without a doubt, I can look you and tell you right now, you have the finest medic service in Grosse Pointe and way beyond. It's, the dedication of these guys. I was telling Bruce earlier, when they go through the door, they know the patient's history half the time. I mean, it's really a tremendous service.
And Chief, you saved those 2 men's lives, recently, at 8 Mile at Vernier and
You'll
Lakeshore.
be seeing them in January when they get their awards. They did a great job, all 3 of them.
The mutual aid agreement that you're speaking of, is that a statewide, or, I mean, who makes that mutual aid agreement up?
It's an agreement that it was first drafted in the 50s, it was revamped in the 90s, and we did it again in the early 2000s. It covers police, fire, and EMS. It just covers Grosse Pointe and Harper Woods, and it covers police, fire, and EMS. So whatever we need, we get. Whatever, we have a system for target hazards. So if we have a fire at the yacht club, we immediately call mutual aid. We get whatever resources we want from the other points. So, and
Yeah.
as well, we go there.
You were saying that Grosse Pointe Woods uses Grosse Pointe Shores as a backup for their mutual aid quite a bit. Is there any type of stipulation in that agreement of how many times they can use Grosse Pointe Shores as a backup?
No.
So what happens if they call mutual aid and your rig is out? Where do they?
They gotta find it. They have to go to the farm.
Okay.
They have to, now what you just first indicated is the way it works until Saturday. And then Saturday, our runs will go down. I would almost guarantee it, because MedStar is gonna want the revenue on the back-to-back run. They're gonna have a rig near the farms or near St. John, or, so they say, so. Then one of my other fears is that they're not gonna be able to find a rig, and then they're gonna say, oh, call the Shores. And we'll roll, and we'll take a beating because we're really late, but we just got the run. So,
The guy's green.
yeah, so,
But Chief, it depends on the response time too,
Right.
because their drivers aren't from the area and they're looking,
supposedly
Stanhope, where's
addressed that
Stanhope?
with the geocoding system, so they're gonna have monitors in the cars, computers in the trucks, so I'm gonna give you a report month to month and let you know how this is panning out, so.
This is gonna work the same way the mutual aid did between the Woods and Harper Woods, when they had the fire issues. And the Woods decided not to support mutual aid, and we were gonna be the mutual aid partner for Harper Woods.
Well, for a while, their numbers were so low in Harper Woods, we had to, instead of responding with an ambulance on a second alarm, they wanted an engine on a second alarm. So for the first 2 or 3 years I was here, we sent them an engine on a second alarm, and now their manpower's back up, so they're doing better, but
This brings me to the point where, in talking about this, and obviously this must be kind of a conversation that's happening, because I've been getting a lot of phone calls about our public safety department again. And you know how the residents of Grosse Pointe Shores, each and every one of us, we feel like they're ours, and we don't want to share. And a couple of questions have been brought up to me of bringing the dispatch back to Grosse Pointe Shores, and making this an autonomous city again for dispatch, fire, and that. So can you just address that, and I can take that back?
Absolutely. At the time when Grosse Pointe Shores decided to move, prior to my arrival, that the decision was made to move the dispatch to Grosse Pointe Farm. And that was done. In the interim, when that happened, the radio system went from a proprietary Grosse Pointe Harper Woods only system to the state system. So I remember discussing this back in 2012. If we went back to get back on the state system, the costs were prohibitive. It was $200,000 or $300,000 to get back onto the state system. And the other thing that I just want to remind everyone about mutual aid is that we are the smallest kid on the block, and we need mutual aid more than anybody does. And I got 3 guys working. If we get a fire on Lakeshore, we got our hands full, and so we have to be very careful about trying to be isolationists in regards to what we're doing here, because we need the help more than anybody else. And so that was the cost. We had discussed bringing dispatch back and controlling it here, but the costs were prohibitive. And
Well, how much do we pay to have the farms do our dispatch a year?
$125.
125? And you're saying it's 200 to 300,000 to bring it back in here?
Oh, no. That's for the radios alone.
For Columbus?
That's just for, no, that's not Columbus. That's just the dispatch and communication. That doesn't
that's the
include.
hardware and the software.
We have to upgrade all our lockup because they're not compliant. So we have to build new cells. You're gonna have to have a 24/7 dispatch people.
Well, we have the clerks that are.
No, they're not dispatchers.
No, but we already have a cost.
They're not anywhere close to what a dispatcher makes.
Okay.
They make at least $20 to $25 an hour.
Okay.
So that's half the wages. Plus, you're going to have all the insurance costs that drive those numbers back up. I don't know, we went through the growing pain of learning how to do this off-site. And the chief did a remarkable job of taking a really screwed up situation and getting it to where now, when you call dispatch, you don't know where you're calling. You can be calling India. It's seamless to most of our residents. I don't know anybody I haven't heard a complaint in years. Have you, chief?
No, we have done very well. And I will mention too that as I've been working with Mark very close on this, as well as Grosse Pointe Woods. We're very excited to be making a proposal soon in regards to our dispatch. Grosse Pointe Woods, as I've mentioned before, received a grant for $500,000 to build out their dispatch and their lockup, state-of-the-art stuff. And we're looking very much forward to making a presentation to council in regards to a state-of-the-art facility that I will guarantee you will work better than what we currently have. We have redrafted a new contract. Brian's been looking at it, and so I'm encouraged by where we're going, but we have to be careful because, again, we are the smallest and the most vulnerable of the points. We have very low crime and very low incidence of fire, but when it happens, we need help. So it's a manpower issue, and they love to come, and my guys like to go. I mean, if there's a fire in the woods, I'd love to get my guys in there for training or whatever. So it works very well. So.
All right, thank you, Chief.
And one thing you talk about the communication, Tina, we can't, right now, one of the big things is being able to text to 911. If you're in your closet, you're not gonna have your landline, and you're not gonna be calling. We can't do that currently. And the farms has no plans in being able to upgrade their communication equipment to be able to enable us to do that. And I think that's an important thing for people to be able to do. This new system that we're gonna see in the woods, you can do that. In this technology, I mean, it changes, 24 hours. And for us, independently to maintain that, it's like you said, we're the smallest kid on the block. This isn't Barney and Andy in the old days, you have to have the technology to do it.
The last thing I wanted to mention too is that your public safety department is not the only department in the city that saves lives. Today at about noon, a woman working on cleaning a boat near well number 6 fell into the water, and the DPW worker, Mike Way, who many of you know, heard her hit the water and went to her aid, pulled her out of the water, got her to safety, and so we're grateful to Public Works. They're trying to steal my job here, I think, but other than that, it was a great. He saw something that happened, he got involved, and he helped her out, so it was nice. So.
That's great. Good
Thank
job.
you, Chief, for such an extensive report. Thank you. Brett?
evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll try to be brief this evening, so we'll see how that goes. Okay. Well, our fall leaf program started yesterday. Currently, we're going to stay with what we did last year. We're going to try to pick up leaves on your scheduled rubbish pickup day. That seemed to work real well last year, and we're going to try to maintain that. We ask residents to place their leaves in the gutter of the road, and we'll be more than happy to pick them up. And we also ask that Lakeshore residents place the leaves in the grass or on the grass just behind the curb, as close as they can get. There's just not enough room to get them out on Lakeshore Road. A quick DTE gas update. We have one house on Renaud, one house on Oxford, and those streets will be complete. They're currently working on Lakeshore Lane. That should be done this week. Shoreham should be finished by the end of next week. That'll leave one street in Grosse Pointe Shores to be completed as far as the gas system is installed, and that would be Colonial. They've been putting, instead of us, we do the worst first, they're waiting to do the worst last because it's a small, narrow, dead-end street. So they hope to get started on it soon. If anyone has any concerns regarding restoration work that is done throughout our community regarding DTE, feel free to contact me. We are still meeting weekly, and we talk many times a day to make sure that our residents are taken care of. The water main project near near Ford House at the north end of town, the final connection was made today. The water was turned back on to all the residents from well, right near the Ford House. That was just turned on today around 6 o'clock. The new main is up and running, and next we have to get DTE to run an electric line to the new meter vault. That's going to complete the project. We don't expect any service interruptions after today as far as the water being turned off. The project is going very smooth, and I think the Ford House is looking forward to getting that done too, so they're excited about getting that project done. The Improvement Foundation has asked to help us out with a few projects. Number one, the brick box around the bell tower that is on the Vernier Road side. We have some issues with a wall, and it looks like they are going to have that brick wall repaired for us. Work for that is supposed to begin soon. I spoke with a gentleman today, and he's looking forward to coming out and getting started. Also, a new pool liner will be installed in the wading pool at our park. We're expecting work on that to begin soon. The splash pad, or the splash park across the street, also has had some resurfacing or grinding work done to ensure that the water drains better than it is currently draining. And in the spring, we're looking forward to getting that splash pad painted. That should turn out as well. Let's see. I'd also like to thank the Improvement Foundation for their generosity in the areas. They see some things that needed to be done and see if they could help out. So we thank them for that. Most of our irrigation systems have been winterized. Currently, the City Hall, the Marina, and the bathhouse are the only things that need to be done, and we'll probably be getting those done soon. Countertops are in order for our bathrooms and the locker rooms at our bathhouse. Councilman Barrett is currently checking into some LED lighting for these rooms as well, and will be coming shortly with some recommendations. I'd like to thank him for his help in that area. Also, we are currently cleaning our sanitary sewers throughout the village. We're working with a SAW grant. We had talked about that for months at a time, but this project is going very smooth. I guess I'm used to the phone calls from DTE and everything, but this project has gone so smooth that we're just not getting any calls. The guys that are doing the work, they're from Pipe Tech Services. They're clean. They pick up after themselves. And it sure is nice to have a good, smooth project. We're looking to get the results of the cleaning and televising soon, give us an idea of what kind of shape our sanitary sewer system is in. And today I had the opportunity to meet with the team from Honeywell, along with Councilman Barrett. We reviewed our third-year audit, and I'm sure Councilman Barrett will be speaking on that later in the meeting. And that's all I have. If there are any questions?
Don't you have to do the
foundation doing the seascapes?
Yes, the foundation is also working on the seascapes. Those are the landscaping areas that are on Lake Shore Road, south of Vernier, between the roadway and the lake. I believe there's 8 of them, and they were in pretty bad shape. And what they're currently doing is going through them and cleaning them out, and we're also looking for a proposal that they're going to take care of the maintenance on those beds for the years to come. So we again thank them for that. Thank
Brett,
you.
are they finding any structural deficiencies with the water mains, with the SAW grant money? Are they finding any
Well, currently
deficiencies?
they're cleaning and televising, and when that report comes in, if there's issues, they will be letting us know.
Okay.
And we already know where our bad areas are. I got a phone call today, and
Oxford?
that's where they were working. So
Okay.
I told them, no surprise, we know exactly what's there, and they said, "Are you sure you don't want to come take a look?" I told them, no, we know what's going on. So hopefully we won't have any surprises, but so far the calls
Okay.
we've got haven't been a surprise.
Good.
Once those tapes have been reviewed, maybe we'll see something that we're unaware of, so.
Well, thanks, Brett. Any other questions for Brett?
Very good.
Thank you very much. Bob, Park and Harbor?
Okay, I'll add the Honeywell when I'm done. Just 2 things. Number 1, the boat, when they rent the boats, wells next year, there's gonna be a clause in their contract where the city will be able to move the boat if it's not compliant. The city wasted a lot of time trying to make contact and move the boat, so the city will have the authority to be able to move the boat from one well to another to make sure it's safely in place. So that's a good news. That'll save a lot of time. Second part, but the park went through that Blue Fest tomorrow night. Okay, they've been hard at work over getting everything ready. I saw all the pumpkins being delivered and stalks of,
Corn stalks.
corn stalks, yeah, being installed over there. So everything's looking good. Everybody's hard at work over there. Yes, it was. We're gonna have good weather tomorrow. Honeywell, it's the 3rd and final report. As you know, 3 years ago, the city ventured with Honeywell to fix a lot of the infrastructure. And the savings have been proven out. It was a $3 million deal. 15 need to pay back for 15 years. And the cost savings of Oints for the 3rd year is $204,000. That's up a little bit, about 3% better than the last 2 years. And there'll be no more further reports by that. But Brett's gonna keep in contact with them and make sure everything's okay. As you know, they replaced infrastructure. It was back in the 40s and 50s, and it was well outdated, and basically parts to replace was getting to be impossible, so. It's a win-win for the city across the board, and Honeywell seems to be on top of what they're doing, and the reporting's really well done. So, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Bob. Tina, do you have anything to add for Blue Ribbon, or?
No, as the minutes showed last month, we dissolved that group.
Okay.
That Blue Ribbon Committee
Okay.
is no longer viable and active.
Okay, good. Legal report, Brian?
Thanks, Judge. Since the date of the city council meeting held on September 19th, the city attorney's been engaged in the following activities on behalf of the city. And again, this is not in any particular order, but first thing we did was we reviewed a proposed intergovernmental agreement between the city and other cities that are going to become a part of the Southeast Macomb Sanitary District. Right now, the city's sewage disposal system is moderated, I guess, or so the city's a part of a sewage disposal system agreement with the Northeast Sewage Disposal System, and that's going to go out of business. The new entity is going to take over. We had discussions with the lawyer for I'll call it the sanitary district, it makes it easy. We had discussions with the lawyer about the contract that they would like the city to enter into. We are preparing comments on that proposed contract right now. It's a fairly straightforward assignment sort of contract, and it says if you know, the city's sewage discharges, as in the past, are going to be metered And then the city will be charged certain rates on the one hand for staying within a certain discharge parameter, and then charged for exceedances on the other hand. The two issues that we covered with council for the new sewage district have to do with retroactivity on the one hand. Is the city going to be charged, or are they going to seek to charge the city for exceedances that have occurred in the past from time to time? And the answer to that right now at least appears to be no. The other issue is a compliance schedule. In other words, this agreement is supposed to come into effect this coming January of 2018. And the city, of course, is on the one hand looking at its sewer system through the SAW grant, and on the other, there are certain, I'll call them infarcts or problems with the sewage system that would result in the city having to come into compliance in order to meet the discharge requirements under the new contract. So we talked about a compliance schedule and a timeline, and they're quite cognizant of that. And you know, that's something, once this contract is inked, that is something that will be negotiated separately. But at least right now, and I'm not the engineer here, at least right now it looks like that would take several years to come into compliance, and the contract provides for compliance schedules. So again, we are at this point really just preparing some comments on the contract itself, and I think it's not a real complicated contract, frankly. It's a continuation for the most part of what the city is already subject to. We also reviewed and prepared a Title VI subrecipient annual certification form for filing with the Michigan Department of Transportation. That is essentially a form that the city is required, because it's a recipient of federal funds, to file once a year, indicating whether or not it has solicited bids from any disadvantaged businesses, or in any other way it is sought to engage disadvantaged businesses. Disadvantaged businesses are essentially minority-owned businesses. It's a two-page form that's got to be filled out every year, and of course the city's got to provide us with that information, and that has been filed. We conferred with the city regarding a new body camera law that is becoming effective in January 2018. We're preparing a memorandum for review by Chief Schulte and the city manager. The law is called the Law Enforcement Body-Worn Camera Privacy Act. It was enacted in July 7, 2017, but again, it doesn't become effective until January of 18. And the primary purpose of the law, the statute, is to address the release of video from body-worn cameras. In other words, there's Privacy Act or privacy considerations involved, particularly when it's a victim of a crime that's been filmed on body-worn camera video. There's changes to the Freedom of Information Act that are going to result from this particular statute being enacted. There's definitions of private places versus public places. In other words, if the video recording was conducted in a private place, then it's pretty much exempt from discharge. If it was in a public place, then it's kind of a wider scope, if you will, or a wider ability to obtain the media or somebody through a FOIA request to obtain a copy of the audio or video recording. And again, we're in the process of preparing for the city and for some of our other municipal clients a memorandum discussing the statute and what the city will have to do if and when it becomes, or it decides to use the body-worn cameras. We also conferred with the city regarding Osius Park improvement matters. That's kind of an ongoing discussion. We conferred with the city, Services for Older Citizens, and SMART regarding the ongoing discussions we've been having with SMART, with SOC rather, and PATS regarding revisions to their contract and bylaws as to the operation of the bus service. Regarding 57 Michaud Court, that's the lot that the city owns, vacant lot the city owns. We've been having some ongoing discussions with the city and the developer's title company regarding title commitment and closing matters. We also reviewed and commented on several FOIA requests received in the last month by the city. The city has responded to those accordingly. We reviewed and prepared comments on the proposed dispatch and lockup agreement between the city and Grosse Pointe Woods. And Chief, I just sent that to you. I got it midweek last week, and I thought my associate had copied you on it, but she hadn't, so it's in your, should be in your mailbox. And then finally, with regard to Deeplands Drive, I know everybody's interested in this. At the August City Council meeting, actually the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting where the City Council acted as a Zoning Board of Appeals, the Deeplands project, as it had been originally proposed, was denied. And so the developer on August 17th filed an appeal with the Wayne County Circuit Court, which is the next route of appeal of that decision. We were asked to accept service on behalf of the city. Our law firm was asked to accept service on behalf of the city of the appeal document. And that's a pro forma thing that you do. Otherwise, you're going to have a process server showing up and, demanding to see the city manager or the next person in charge. And we didn't want that. The next step in the process is for the appellee, and that's there's an appellant, that's a person appealing, and the appellee, and that's the city, to assemble and file with the Wayne County Circuit Court what's called the Record on Appeal. And the Record on Appeal is every single thing that was submitted from the initial Planning Commission application through the Planning Commission meetings, through the Zoning Board meeting, through the City Council meeting, then on to the Zoning Board. All of those documents are compiled and transmitted to the Wayne County Circuit Court for review. This is not an ordinary litigation type matter where somebody files a complaint and you file an answer. This is an appeal, so it's the rules are different. And in that context, we assembled the Record on Appeal. We filed it timely this past Friday, the 13th of October. And that establishes the clock for what occurs next. What occurs next then is the appellant, the developer, files a brief on appeal, and they're to do that within 28 days unless they get an extension from the court or by stipulation. So right now their brief would be due on November 10th. A response brief, the city's response brief, would be due on December 1st. Then it goes to the Wayne County Circuit Court for review, and if the parties request it, oral argument, and I would assume that that's something that we're going to want to do. And the Wayne County Circuit Court will probably sit on it for a year to a year and a half, because that's the speed of things in Wayne County on a good day. Meanwhile, we've had some discussions with the developer and the Developers Council. They want to keep the line of communications open with respect to the issues, and we're certainly amenable to doing that. And I believe that's my report. That's pretty much everything I want to cover right now. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have just a question. Who's paying for this appeal cost? Who's paying for all of our work to?
We are.
We are, that's right.
$50,000.
Is that what the budget?
We figure it's 50,000. Think about this one, down on the farm, they spent $1 million in legal fees for the sewer.
Brian, who's the judge on the case?
Roger.
Is this business court? Are we in the business court?
No, it's not business court.
Sure.
It just goes to show that, I mean, we've denied these requests and denied them, and so he's just not taking no for an answer and just gonna keep this going, and we don't have an end? No?
That's part of the process.
Until the court decides in our favor, if they do, this is not covered by the retainer for the city attorneys. There were a number of things that were outside of that, but this is one, it's indicated, and Brian came to the finance committee and explained where we are on this, and we'll see, we'll be meeting with the developer and his attorney in a couple of weeks. Because of their request to do so, weren't able to schedule it in advance due to different schedules, but, we'll see. But that is his option to file after the zoning board, you go to circuit court next. And, I will just say, it's a very interesting argument that he contends there are no other options, yet he showed us a half a dozen or more, so, and
That's the thing
withdrew
that's
some of them.
maddening. It's you can just do this and
Don't forget, yeah, it's frustrating from our side, but don't forget, for every dollar we're spending, he's probably spending two. Okay?
well, he obviously has it to do that, but I just
My understanding is, at this point, is that he's closed on the property.
He has
right.
closed
I've
on it?
heard that,
Okay, so he is now.
and he's doing a ton of work on there.
Well, he can do a
he's-
ton of work, whatever he wants to do in the
Exactly, he
home,
just can't develop
but he's
it.
sitting there at a minimum right now, you're saying, so it's a year and a half before oral argument, or is it, they're gonna schedule it?
Before final that's, you know, totally back in the napkin, but.
Well, that's your experience. Let's say, so it's a year and a half and assume that we prevail, which we feel confident that we would, the way we handled this. And he files and then he goes to the Court of Appeals.
Oh, jeez, Pete.
Okay. But it could be 3 years before he gets disposition. And that's only for approval of a plat.
Why are we agreeing to continue to meet with him and his attorney? Because obviously you're part of those meetings. Am I correct in saying that when you meet with the developer and his attorney? I mean, obviously we would want our city attorney there, right? So just the costs just keep
don't pay for
on
that.
going.
We don't pay for the meeting, right? But that's part of the retainer. That's
Well,
just it.
yeah, but okay.
So, but he's,
Well, let's get straight on attorney fees and what's paid for in the United States, and not just here in Grosse Pointe Shores, and not.
No, I'm not.
No, I
No,
wanna be.
I'm not
be
mad.
quite clear with you on
I'm
it.
mad at the whole system.
Well,
I'm
and
frustrated.
most people that are involved in litigation are, okay? In England, they have what's called the English rule, and the winner the winner's lawyer fees get paid by the loser.
Right.
In the United States, it's the exact opposite. Everybody bears their own attorney fees, except in very narrow circumstances, like, for example, when you have a violation of a civil rights statute, or you have another statute that enables or that entitles the winner or the underdog to get their legal fees paid. But that's not the case here.
Okay.
Okay? And that's the rule. That's the rule in all 50 states. And it's a rule at the federal level, and it's a rule at the local level. So when somebody has a right by statute to pursue an appeal, they're appealing administrative decisions. It's the decision of an administrative agency, which here happens to be the Zoning Board of Appeals. When they have a right to do that, they have to bear their own attorney fees on the one hand, the city has to bear theirs on the other. And as Mark pointed out, we have a retainer to handle certain matters, but it doesn't include litigation.
but the real point.
Because the cost of litigation, you can never predict. People say, well, how much is it going to cost? It's going to depend on what the other party does. It's going to depend on what your client does. It's going to depend on what the court makes you do, and the hoops you have to go through and the amount of time it takes.
Well, when you just described what you had to do when you received the notice and had to go back to the very first communication that you had with this developer up until today and submit that, I mean, right there, I just thought, look at all the time that
But Mark did that.
Mostly that's
all
city
staff
time.
okay.
For the most part.
Mostly that's
I
city
don't know,
time.
I'm just
but-
saying, by the time this is all said and done, that Deeplands project has cost us so much
Yeah.
silly money that could be used in so many other ways. It
Think of
just,
it
it's
this way
maddening.
as well. Don't forget, this guy isn't gonna put a shovel in the ground down there. If we prevail, he's not gonna put a shovel until it's compliant. If we don't prevail, and it goes all the way, it's gonna be at least 3 years. So he's got the carrying cost on a piece of property that's gonna be, a couple $1 million. I think it was what, 3.8? Is that what he paid?
No.
8 now.
Or whatever, he's gonna be carrying that property, and we're gonna collect, trust me, we're gonna collect our taxes on it, okay?
Yeah, well,
And
and
then
then,
you still got a long way to go before somebody's driving down a street down there. It's gonna be.
well, and then to hear the resident of Sheldon with the problems that they're having with what he's currently building, his reputation is taking a big hit here in Grosse Pointe
Well, we don't
Shores.
get to make decisions on reputations.
No.
That's the unfortunate part. But the real problem in this project is gonna be the timeline for building. That's the real issue. Once you get the plot planning done, you get the road put in, okay? And he's gonna sell homes for over $1 million. Well, you don't, it's not like, you're gonna build 6 in a row, They're all custom and and that's where the real issue is gonna be. Because if you're a resident down there, you're not gonna put up with that. You're gonna have weeds next to your $1 million home on the lot, empty lots. So this is fraught with a lot of issues going down the road, fraught with it, so.
Brian, thanks for the report.
thanks.
you know.
Report to city council.
Yeah, thanks. And that's why Shakespeare loved lawyers, huh? Right. Well, thanks, Brian, though. Mark, city report?
Sure. First of all, we have students here from the Student Council from Liggett and their instructors.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you for coming. The mayor and I got a chance to talk to them for a few minutes before. We gave them city pins, and they were interested in seeing how city council does business, which is
Welcome.
sometimes frustrating, as you can see, for what we have to pay for it. I was able to attend 2 weeks ago the Michigan Association of Planning Conference. There's really some excellent sessions. I've shared some material with Brian in terms of some of the recent court decisions, particularly over signs. Big case in Arizona that's still unfolding to what you can and can't do with respect to signs. There was a panel on lakefront development that was really helpful. An old friend, Guy Meadows, used to be at University of Michigan, assisted both the farms and St. Clair Shores in the reconfiguration of their beach, and other members of EPA and some others. So really, that was a good program. Holiday tree lighting is coming up on the 26th of November at 6 p.m., a Sunday here. Please come. Like in the past several years, we'll be taking donations, and we thank those people who have donated in the past for both the Captain Soup Kitchen and dog food and cat food for Four Paws, One Heart. I gotta say that too many times, or I get it messed up. And you can drop off donations here at the public safety desk or upstairs at administrative offices. One of the things, since the gentleman was here that complained, I have been out to Fordcroft on a couple of occasions. There's one particular neighbor and her husband that have complained about the process there, and we do follow up on those complaints. I don't know the status of whether we charged the guy, but about the only thing we can do, unless there is significant safety issues there, and we'll certainly check that tomorrow, is double charge them for permits. And we've done that in several cases, and you'd think money requires, or money talks, but it doesn't always. As we know from some of the houses on Lakeshore, that's taken like 3 or 4 years to get constructed. So we do follow up on those complaints. Whether I've gotten them personally or not, I appreciate him mentioning that, and we'll be happy to check those and send a note to council. I know the mayor attended a program with the other mayors that I could not go to on the development of a ring system and a connection that with Rocket Fiber from Detroit. And we have not seen our share of the prices yet, nor do we know how it's going to be financed. But it's really been a joint process between the schools. I think I've talked about it before. Mayor may mention it as well as later. I'm glad that Tim was able to come to talk about the bike fix-it station. We put those in like 2 or 3 years ago, and we're still waiting for our money from Wayne County. Tim, it was on the agenda 2 weeks ago to be approved in terms of an allocation. I'm just not holding my breath for the check, but it should come soon. And again, back on building complaints, what typically happens is a complaint is made upstairs to Tom or one of us, and we'll follow up by going out in the field. If a ticket is necessary to be issued, public safety actually does that. Usually, John Jabrell goes out and does that. And again, sometimes we go out on complaints, and there have been traffic complaints. I'd forgotten about that. Chief had mentioned that to me. As I said, the Ford Craft one, I went out and looked at it on numerous occasions with Tom and without Tom, and I don't think the complaints were justified, frankly, even though we make a contact with that. It's a different developer on that one, and say, look, when are you going to get this project finished? What about these papers that your construction workers threw over here, etc.? There is always a problem when there's a construction. We know it from the DTE programs or the gas people in, we know it from our project here at 11 Mile, at Vernier, where how many times we dig up the same piece of cement, etc. But we do take those seriously, and we'll be happy to let council know that what we found and what we can do with respect to that. And probably, if his permit is actually expired, and I have no reason to doubt that he's correct in that, we'll double permit him. And sometimes we can get, but sadly, the state has, and I've lost cases like this, if he drives about a nail every 6 months, we can't stop their permit or their process. So, happy to answer any other questions.
I know we had that issue on Colonial Road, was it 37 or 41
Yep.
Colonial?
41 Colonial, I think, and
And it was a renovation, it wasn't new construction,
No.
but, which maybe is even more complicated, but,
yeah, that project, actually, there's somebody occupying that house, and our latest problem that there was two. One is the number of vehicles on the street, one which was left on the street. I think he got away without a ticket, but unfortunately, because how narrow the street is, one of our trucks hit the vehicle that was parked illegally on the street, so, and we
Huh.
did make that right.
Could we ask the one complaint about there's a green fence on the one side, and there's no gates.
We can check, I'll check on that.
I know there's no gate. We could ask them to install gates and then lock
Anything that's a safety-related issue.
the gates
we
at
can
night,
get
make
into
sure it's secure.
compliance, or we can shut the project down if we had to.
And put it, and have them post a notice, construction zone, you can't enter, at least give notice.
Yep.
I mean, the guy's got the fence up, it's not,
Yep. So we'll be happy to follow up and send a note to council on that.
okay, good, thanks. Any questions of Mark? If not, thanks, Mark. Old business, no new business. Here's where I think what we were talking about doing is having a spot for the Improvement Foundation, to having an agenda item or under new business. And so, Brett, seeing you in the back, would you like to speak about the good work? Okay. Okay. Well, we're gonna add it as a regular agenda item from now on, so that we can, better keep track and collaborate with your efforts. Thanks, Brett. Okay, public comment? Any public comment? Oh, I'm so glad Helen's here to talk about tomorrow.
Actually, I wasn't going to talk about tomorrow. I have two things and maybe a third tomorrow. The first thing is I wanted to update you on what has happened with our impatiens experiment. Remember a few months ago, in April, we told you that we were going to plant impatiens again, hoping that the spores in the ground had been killed by either the nasty winters that we've had or by the heat of the summers. So, our experiment consisted of one garden that was planted in absolutely pristine soil. No impatiens had ever been planted there. Another garden was planted in soil that had contaminated soil because of the downy mildew, which attacked the impatiens, and then they all died. So, May was good, we planted them. June was wonderful, July was wonderful. The very end of July, I got an email from Doug Cusick, who said, "How are the impatiens doing at the shores? Mine look awful." And I thought, okay. So I knew Mike was out of town that week, our master gardener. So I drove over and took a look at them and thought, oh my gosh, they have downy mildew. So by the time Mike got back into town on Monday, he had taken a look at what I had seen like the day before and said, he picked up one leaf, turned it over, and here are all these white spots of mildew all over the bottom of the leaf. He took both gardens out that day. So we learned two things by the experiment. First of all, the spores are still in the ground that had the original spores. Second thing we learned was, yes, indeed, the hypothesis that spores blow in the wind to pristine soil is confirmed. Blew from one end of our parking lot to over here at the end of the municipal building, about a half a block. And so newly contaminated ground resulted in that spore, blowing across the parking lot. So we decided at our September meeting that we will not plant impatiens next year. We will go back to our begonias, and we're saddened, but it was a good experiment. So that's the first thing. Second thing I want to talk to you about is that we are conducting a membership drive. Over the last 3 years, we've had about 5-6 members who have either passed away or moved out of the city. Once you are not in the Shores, you can no longer become a member of our beautification committee. You have to live in the Shores. So we have about 5 or 6 openings. We would love to have anybody. Can be young, can be old, can be male, female. It can be empty nesters. It can be moms who drop their kids at school and think, oh, I've got some time today. What shall I do? Most of our activities, there are about 5 of them every year that we do. 2 things that we do are to plant our flowers in May. Then another thing we do is to clean up the park in September or early October. Then we decorate for Easter and for the Boo Fest, which we did today. And that's pretty much it. We have 2 meetings, only 2 meetings a year. Most everything except our shred day, which is every other year in April, May, sometimes usually that period of time. Most of our things are during the week. The shred day is on a Saturday. Everything is pretty much done by noon. So moms can drop the kids at school, come help us do 2 hours of work, and feel very, very rewarded that they have helped their community out, pick up their kids either at noon if they're in kindergarten or at 3 o'clock when they get out of school. We're looking for empty nesters. We're looking for anyone who wants to contribute to the community, whether it's to plant or help. Like today, Mary Nichols, Bruce's wife, came and was just instrumental in accomplishing in 3 hours. We decorated the entire park for Halloween. The things that beautification does, we did in 3 hours. Doug was part of that too. So, we are looking for people to join. Give me a call either on my cell or my home line that can be given to you by upstairs. And we're looking to have some new members. So those 2 things. And then the third thing is the Boo Fest is tomorrow night. I will be dressed as a pumpkin. We have a pumpkin patch, folks. Don't know if you know. But we bring in 2 tons of pumpkins, which we arrange on the peninsula so that the kids can choose their own pumpkin. The Improvement Foundation, and I wish John Pollock were here tonight because he helped us decorate. And then he went and he spent the entire afternoon decorating the Improvement Foundation tent where they give hot chocolate and donut holes out as little snacks for the children and adults. We get them over at the pumpkin patch. So it's a great event. Even if you don't have children, take 15 minutes and walk through the park. The children are just amazing. They come to our pumpkin patch. They want to have their pictures taken with Raggedy Andy, who sits in a swing and kind of blows back and forth on the wind. They are just so happy to be at our park. This is an amazing event. It is probably the most attended event of anything we do as a city. And it's well worth it. So that's tomorrow, 6 to 7:30. Everybody come.
Good, thanks, Helen.
Questions?
Yeah, no, thank you. Any other public comment? If not, council comment, Bob?
Almost that thing.
Tina?
Just on her membership drive, could we make a note and put it on our newsletter?
Sure.
Oh, okay, all right. And that's it. Oh, the Grosse Pointe Improvement Foundation had their annual fundraiser, last week. The, what's it called? Celebrate, Decorate. A huge success. I understand it had more attendees than ever before. So we thank the Improvement Foundation for doing that, especially Heidi and Fran, who do an amazing job. If you've never gone, make sure next year you go. And that's all.
Thanks, Tina. Bruce?
Also,
Um,
I just want to thank Helen and the beautification committee once again on the Booth Fest and your guys. There was probably a dozen people out there today that helped, and great job. And then just want to say get well to Bob again.
Good. Thanks, Doug. Thanks. A couple comments. We had a couple weeks ago a chess tournament on Sunday, a beautiful day, and Jonathan Alerty successfully defended his title as Grandmaster of Grosse Pointe Shores. So we're missing a couple key contestants. So again, it was a beautiful day, and again, fun for the people that attended. So I'd like to thank Bruce Campbell and Susan Treater for helping organize the event and making it successful. We talked about the holiday Boo Fest. It's really a fun day. Helen, you're right. And I don't know what 2 tons or 3 tons of pumpkins. I was told that we get between 300 and 400 pumpkins. Yeah. And everyone walks home or drives home with a pumpkin. So we welcome everyone to come to the Boo Fest. We have an election next month, and we'll be welcoming we know who the new council member is. It's Matt Seeley will be the new council member. We're grateful. We're also grateful for the 6 years spent by Dr. Alex Angeloni. And Alex was always the voice of reason and good common sense. We were grappling with many issues over the last 6 years. And so we're going to ask him to come to either the next council meeting or in December. We'd like to give him a proclamation for his 6 years of service. We're also going to make committee appointments next month and at the council meeting after the election. So if anybody's interested, Helen, like we talked about beautification and the other committees and commissions, we welcome input and interest. I think I'm going to recommend splitting the park committee from the harbor committee because the issues are there's so many and a little bit different for each of them. So we'll be looking for some new members, younger members perhaps, certainly younger than me, and to join, to join our staff. We talked about the Improvement Foundation. Brett, it was very successful. You bought a table. I heard we had over 100 people there. Was it? 166, and it's like 30 more than last year, I was told. So that's a great event, brings a lot of money. And thanks to Harry and Lynn Kurtz for having a pre-fundraiser party at their house to cover the cost of the table settings. I think each of the Spoon sponsors, I think, helped cover the cost of the table settings. So, I mean, a lot of good things going on with the community, and I thank Liggett for sending in their finest over here to watch our council meeting. And if you have any comments, we welcome them right now. I forgot to ask if you have any questions. Your teachers are beaming. They're so proud that you were so patient and listening to how we deal with, sometimes simple issues, sometimes not so simple issues, We start talking about legal issues. I mean, you heard how long the discussion was. And well, if you'd like to say something, now's the time to come forward and say a few words. We have a spokesperson? Don't be shy. Okay, maybe the president wants to come forward and say a few words. And tell us what you learned or coming to this distinguished council meeting.
Absolutely. I'm Matthew Mansour, president of the student body at University Liggett. And our main objective here was to come in and watch you guys and observe how you handle these meetings. Actually, we haven't really had a full meeting yet at our school due to many scheduling conflicts. So it's nice to see the organization you guys have where, you have time for citizens to come in and express their concerns, and then each one of the council members has their turn as well. And I definitely think we should do that kind of scattered at the moment with our meetings, but I think if we have a good setup, we can get things done a little better and more efficiently. And I think, yeah, this is a great experience, and maybe we can come back next time and see it.
Well, thanks for coming. We're welcome to have you. So, okay, at this point, I need a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is November 21st, 7 o'clock. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah, Bruce, this is what. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you understand that? I was,